Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And first I want to start with saying thank you guys for getting us to almost 500 subscribers. It's definitely been a journey and I definitely appreciate everything as far as the comments, also all the positive that has come from you guys, things that you guys mentioned, just viewing it, just getting us to this point. So definitely want to say thank you guys for that. Now obviously you guys can see this is the first time seeing me on camera. I want to welcome myself to you guys for the first time. I am finally putting myself on camera for various reasons why I didn't start in the beginning, but it just wasn't the right timing. So now I am here to be welcomed by you guys and introduce myself to you guys on camera. So here I am. So I decided I want to go back to the beginning as far as this kind of, if you want to call this a midpoint in the channel, that I wanted to go kind of back and refresh on a few of the beginning topics that we started with that never really would have got the same range when there was only maybe 20 or 50 subscribers, where now we're almost at 500 subscribers. So a lot of those elements come from this book here that I had wrote. I'm going to put the link in the description down below. A guide to better living for a better life. I know it's kind of like just a whatever type of title, but the point is still there. It focuses on you creating the better life for yourself that you want to have and that you want to lead. Now, obviously you guys know by this point of watching the channel that this channel is really about self-help, just guidance. Any kind of questions you guys might have that you guys want to put in the comments that I'm able to answer or research and find out an answer for you guys. Essentially, this channel is all about positivity and growth. So a couple of the key core things that I originally had started on the channel that was inside the book that I referenced was personal growth, social growth, and money management. Three key simple things that I feel that a lot of people don't really, I'm not going to say a lot of people, but a good amount of people have not learned to master, or at least get it started. And these are three things that will definitely change your life. So I wanted to go back to this, and I'm going to go through three parts. So right now I'm just going to do one part, personal growth. But I definitely feel that it's one of those things that really plays a big role for a lot of people, especially in today's age, because we're in a space now where a lot of people are with social media. They're very much influenced or affected by the things that that people post, that people talk about them, whatever the case is. So it's definitely in that space of like, I don't want to use the term that people are not as strong. But what I will say is that it's just different times. And so sometimes people need a little bit of boost or a little bit of extra influence to help them get to a space where they can kind of see how to navigate this world, especially like I said, the times that we're in now, where a lot of times before social media, you didn't really have to worry about those kind of things, And back then at that time, people kind of built a little bit more tougher, because really the only people who really were around to maybe judge you or have influence in your life, I don't want to use necessarily the word judge, though it happened, but just was your little circle, your little community, whatever's around you. And nowadays we're in that space. So just as a positive to kind of pick people up and give a little bit of boost, we are going to come back to those core elements that I mentioned in the beginning of the channel, just as a refresh. And then from then on, we're going to go into so many new topics down the line. But like I said, this is almost like a rebirth of the channel, if you want to call it that, because like I said, we are almost reaching 500, and finally it is a point in time where I am, like I said, now in front of the camera to introduce myself to you guys. So personal growth. Now, this really focuses on a couple of things, but one of the first things is really focusing around the idea of how you see yourself and how you want the world to see you, or how you want them to perceive you. A lot of times we come from a space, and this is not everybody. There are some people who walks of life who they're incredibly confident. They already get it right away. And you always see those kind of people. I like to throw out this random number that usually 1 in every 5 people are always going to be the person who really has it. They know it. They got that gift. They got the gift of gab. They got the charisma. They got all those kind of things. And some people are just a little bit behind in that. They're strong in other areas, but maybe not that. And that sometimes takes a big toll in terms of them moving forward. So as far as the way that you see yourself, there's a good amount of people who don't see themselves in the way that they want to be seen, the way they want to be perceived, or even the way they see themselves. And so part of personal growth is changing that. It's changing the way you see yourself, plus the way that you want others to see you, and that the way others are going to see you. So first, that starts with a certain level of change. But before we get there, I'm going to jump into just a little bit of how, I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but a little kind of basic scenario of things. Some people might fall into a space where maybe you're 20 years old, for example, right? And this could apply to anybody at any age, but I'm using this as around that age is where you start seeing like a turning point in those young 20s where you should be elevating to be part of the real world, and sometimes you kind of run into a little bit of roadblocks. So at age 20, say if you're coming from being a teenager and you are stuck in a space where you're wearing super baggy clothes, parachute pants, you've got all these, maybe you're in this space of like a category of like a trend. So maybe you're thug or punk or goth or something of that sort, and it's something that defined you when you were younger, but at the same time now you're not really able to enter that space of society where maybe you feel like you're not taken as seriously. And a good example of that would be if you're dressing that same way, and then the rest of your friends or your peers, say once you get to 25 years old and the rest of your friends are 25 years old, they're becoming more established, you might, if you don't feel confident enough, you're gonna stick to what you're comfortable with, and you're gonna maybe dress a certain way that you maybe dressed when you were like 18 years old, 15 years old. You're gonna continue that, and then what happens is you start to then stay around people who are also in that space, in that level, or in that age range that associate with that. So you might be 25 years old, but you're hanging with 21-year-olds who dress that same way because the outside expression that you're giving the world is, I'm comfortable this way because I'm kind of scared of change. And so that is kind of one of those areas where once that happens, it snowballs. And I've actually met people like this before, where as time goes on, even up into their 40s, where they're dressing like they were in their maybe young 20s, maybe even like mid 20s or whatever the case is, and they're now amongst peers that are 40, and because of the way that they feel inside, they dress that way on the outside, and a lot of people perceive it and treated them that same way. Like, okay, they treated the person like they didn't know any better, or that they weren't amongst that level, even though some of the people in our circle who were part of certain conversations were actually younger than that person. So this is a real thing that happens. We're going to speak on ways to kind of get out of that space. And I just use that as an example, but and that usually happens with a lot of different ages at different, where you should be at a certain space and you're not because you're a little intimidated to go to that next level. First thing we're going to start for changing the way you feel about yourself, and which is definitely going to affect the way people see you. First, we're going to start with your health. A lot of people neglect their health, especially if they're in a space where they didn't enjoy who they are. They're in a space where they're not comfortable with who they are, the way they look. It's so many other factors. Health is one element that is going to change a lot, but it's also going to affect not only the way you think about yourself and the way other people perceive you, but it's one of the easiest things to kind of get started on. And I say easy in the sense that it doesn't cost extra money. Now, not to say that, like I said, it's not to say that it's easy, because definitely not one of the more easier things, but there's exercise and there's eating better. And sometimes too, when it comes to eating better, you can't always eat the premium expensive, because sometimes healthy food is expensive, but you could still eat different or change the way you eat. You could start with that. So first, we're going to get into the exercise part. I like to say to people, don't jump into doing too much right away. Don't set yourself with a goal that is like, I'm going to be into the gym 2 hours a day, every day of the week, and I'm going to expect change. I've seen people who try this mentality, they join gyms. After like a week, 2 weeks, or whatever the case is, they don't ever go back. Or they might go, and when they get there, they're not even trying to really do that much work. They stay for a couple of minutes and they leave and be like, okay, I did something. And in their mind, they're like, I did something. So that makes me feel better that I actually did something. But they actually didn't really do anything. Then you have, like I said, just people who just have these large expectations. What I'm going to say to that is start small and do what you can. One, in terms of the workload that you're going to do as far as exercise, but two, in terms of the timing that you're going to do it. And I think this is very important. And I discovered this for myself when I was in a space where I wanted to get a little bit more active. I came from a space where I had less because of work and this and that and a lot of other things going on, and I was less active. And I was like, okay, I want to improve things. I want to eat better. I want to feel a little bit more fit. What I realized is that I would sometimes have days where I came home after work, and it'd be late at night, and I would try to do a couple of of things, push-ups, sit-ups, this and that. It wasn't working. After that, I just stopped because I'd come home and I'm tired. Then there are times where you hear people who try to do things early in the morning, and if it works for them, it works for them. But for a person who's new to getting into the space, sometimes that becomes very tough as well, because you're trying to have the energy to get up to do that and then now go about your day. Sometimes you just don't have the timing, because a lot of people wake up right before it's time to go to work or go to do whatever, activity they have to do, whether it's work, school, or whatever the case is. So what I realized is right after you get out of the shower is one of the best times. Now, this is for me. If you guys find a better time for yourself, then incorporate that. But I realized that for me, one of the best times really is just, like I said, you get out the shower. That's the thing that gets you woken up. Sometimes the hardest part is just waking up. And once you get out of the shower, for most everybody, you're awake now. You're ready to go. That's usually the hardest part about getting the day started, getting out of bed, jump in the shower. Once you do that, what I usually do now is I would get out of the shower. First thing I do, go into my room, go into the living room, whatever the case is, I do a couple push-ups. And what I would suggest to somebody is, if you're new to that, do maybe like 5 push-ups if that's all you could do. If you could do 10, do 10. Every day, do that. I would say if you have a couple of dumbbells, incorporate that as well. Like maybe some curls, do a couple. You don't have to do a lot, but maybe 20 in each hand if you can do that. So just alternate, count 1 all the way up to 40, or lower the weight and lower the intensity depending on your situation and what suits you. But I would say, in addition to that, try to do maybe running in place, maybe even some side twist. And I say this because this will also help maybe like the core area a little bit. I'm no expert when it comes to exercising, but just getting that movement going on. And like I said, you don't have to do a lot for the little cardio, the little twist, or maybe running in place. Do maybe a minute. Set your smart speaker and say, hey, listen, give me a timer for 1 minute, and just do it for 1 minute. But those simple things that you can do will get you started. And as time goes on, every day you do that, you don't have to worry about time, because dropping down to do 10 push-ups takes you like just a couple of seconds. Doing a couple of curls with the dumbbell takes a couple of seconds. And doing some kind of twist or maybe running in place, just a couple of extra seconds. In total, honestly, you're really looking at like no more than 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes worth of exercise. Don't feel that you don't have time for that. You have time for that. If you could sit there and do something else in your regimen to get ready, you can do that. If you feel you don't have enough time for that, get up 5 minutes earlier. It's just 5 minutes, and then do that. But my point is, it goes a long way. And as you keep doing it over time, you're going to see it's easier. You can now go from doing those 10 push-ups to maybe a month later, you're doing 15 push-ups, then it's 20 push-ups, then it's 25 push-ups, and so on and so forth. With every other activity you do, you're able to do more of it and increase the intervals, increase the weight amount when you're using the dumbbells. So you'll notice that, and it goes a long way to at the least maintaining, even if it doesn't necessarily bring you to a space of being super fit. You're maintaining. You're not getting you're maintaining your definition. You're obtaining a certain level of health. You're not diminishing from what you are. So that's one suggestion. And from there, once you get into that space of feeling okay and comfortable and confident with working out, you'll be easier to transition into that space of maybe going to a gym later on if it suits you, or just increasing what you're able to do at home. Now, the next thing, as far as, and this is going to cost a little bit of money, but as far as bringing yourself to the next level, is the way you dress. Now, as I just mentioned earlier, sometimes if you're coming from a space of comfortableness, being comfortable with the way you dress, because it allows you to not feel like, I guess there's a comfort. The best way for me to say is there's a comfort in what we're used to, because we already know the world sees us that way. And sometimes change is scary because we don't know who's going to accept it. So that in itself becomes a thing. So the way you get around that comfort or discomfort, I should say, is like I said, first you have the exercise aspect, but now it's going to be us changing our wardrobe a little bit. In the second part of this video, social growth, I go into explaining how you're able to more comfortably do this transition. So right now we're just talking about the elements that you do for personal growth. Certain things in the social growth aspect of the conversation will increase the comfort level on achieving these things. And I'll get into that. I'll briefly touch on that in a moment after I mention this. But as far as the dress goes, I would say this. Start going to a realm of wearing things that are a little bit more mature, fitting for your age. If you're, say, 25 and above, I'm not saying you have to be super dressy, but that is an easy way to do it. But I know sometimes it takes a lot of confidence to be super dressy, and you have no place to go. I get that, because sometimes it might feel weird. Now, normally when you're coming from a function and you are dressed up, you don't feel weird about it because you know in your mind you came from someplace. So if you want to go that route where you don't have to do too much thinking, but you just want to increase the level of the way that you dress to a more higher mature level, you could do the suit route. You know, a button shirt, a blazer, dress pants, or you can do it without the blazer. That's fine. If you need to psych your mind into it, you could always do it on a Sunday where most people think you're coming from church, and that can help as well. But I would say, generally speaking, if you're not ready to go that level, grab a polo shirt, grab just a button shirt with a pair of jeans and maybe some dress shoes with it, you know, some nice dress shoes. Play around with it, but nonetheless, you know, mix it up. You want brown shoes, black shoes, whatever the case is, nice jeans. Make sure your jeans don't have holes in them or anything like that. You don't have to go full on dressy, but you want to be at a higher level of maturity to where it doesn't look like you're wearing how you feel about yourself, if that makes sense to you. Now, you want to make sure everything is fitted too. You don't want things that are super baggy, super loose, because most people in the adult stage of life do not wear things that you can fit 3 legs in the jeans for your own jeans. And this is not pertaining to any specific way or category, because the truth is all categories have things that they do that with, whether you're punk rock, thug, goth, all those kind of things. And I'm not trying to name any kind of specifics, but you guys get what I'm saying. They'll have holes in the jeans, maybe they're too baggy, maybe at the bottom of the cuff they're ripped where you have like the fabric is kind of becoming loose. None of that is a good look for your more adult phase. Now, some people know how to dress that up, but if you're just beginning, you don't want to even try that. But that's something that you want to focus on. You could go to a store and a place like Macy's or any of these department stores. If you want to do the whole dress up route, you go there, they'll measure you, and you could get something that feels that fits you decently, and you might end up paying somewhere between somewhere in that range of $300. You could probably have yourself 3 different outfits for like $300 or something around that range if you catch them on sale. So I will honestly say that that's the next part between exercise and the way you dress, to put things together in a way that is going to suit you moving forward in terms of the way you want to be perceived and the way you want to, the way you feel about yourself and the way you want others to perceive you. Now, like I said, a little tidbit I was going to give in regards to the social aspect is, sometimes we don't feel confident making these changes in our own environment because people know us and they kind of restrict us from making those changes. Oh, who are you? You know, why are you dressing like that? What's wrong with you? You look silly. I'm going to dive further into this in the social aspect, but I want to say that one thing you can do is you go to a neighboring town or a place you normally don't go to, and all these changes you're making in your life, you do them there. You make that your new hangout spot and you do them there, so that way you feel more comfortable. There's nobody judging you. There's no one who knows you that's judging you on that basis. So it's a fresh start. So now if you want to walk around in your new outfit, your new clothes, whatever, however you did it, and you say, I want to be seen like this. I want to be that person who, listen, like I come into the whatever it is, like maybe the mall or the space, whatever that place is that you go to, and you say, I want people to look at me and go, yeah, you know, he's mature for his age, he's grown, I'm going to give him respect as someone I don't know. You go to a different place, and then you can exude that you want to be viewed that way, and they'll do it because they don't know you. So like I said, we'll dive deeper into that when we get into social growth and many other dynamics of social interactions to help you guys navigate just the world and a lot of different social situations that people go through that especially cause negativity in your life. But like I said, that we're going to get into that for another time. So the other thing I want to get into also, as far as going hand in hand with your dress, is accessories. So excuse me, for women, they kind of already know, for the most part, the things they use to accessorize. Some of them wear earrings, some of them wear, you know, necklaces, different things like that. I'm not gonna dive deep into that because women kind of really already have that down packed. But there's a lot of men who really don't realize how the little accessories that used to be common nature, commonplace back in the days, a lot of guys don't partake in anymore. And I think that it's almost like a forgotten art now. And it actually exudes a higher level of maturity now than it did then, because then it was just standard. Where now, a lot of people don't really do this anymore. So we're gonna start with one of the main things. So three things we're gonna cover, but one of the first things we're gonna cover is a watch. No one these days ever wears a watch. A lot of times people will say nowadays, I have my cell phone. I could just use my cell phone and that tells time. But the thing about it is, one, it's not an accessory. And like I said, accessorizing goes with part of your look. So a lot of these things that I'm about to mention, including the watch, is something that elevates your look. Along with it sends a message also. It says, time matters to me. Because your phone, if you've got like a phone, and you could tell the time on your phone, but the problem with that is that, one, it's rude to always pull your phone out when you're talking to somebody and you're always like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And you just, all the time. That's rude. Secondly, so it's going to portray a level of immaturity, because that's how people view it. You're paying attention to your phone. They don't know what you're looking at your phone for. First off, it's rude to be checking the time anyway when you're talking to somebody. But secondly, nowadays where people will get on their phone and start texting, while they're out hanging out with people or whatever the case is, or whether it's a meeting with someone or this and that, whatever it is, whatever the situation might be, it comes off rude. So even if you're just checking the time, people are going to perceive it maybe that you're looking for who's texting me, where's my notifications, who's hitting me up, which is the wrong mindset that you want to portray to the people that are in front of you that you're hanging around. But secondly, it's rude in general to be checking the time, because it makes it look like you're in a rush to go. So when you could just pull up your wrist and just go, okay, like at a glance, they don't know that you're doing that. You could do it at times where maybe they turn their eye, you just look down real quick and you're like, okay, cool, I know what time it is. And it also creates a dynamic of, hey, it's part of my outfit. You know what I mean? So that's a thing right there. Now, also too, you don't have to spend a lot on a watch. I did a couple of videos before reviewing watch stuff and even talking about me trying to help out a friend who wanted a watch. If you're in that space where you're a little bit older, you're already working and you can afford like a little bit more better of a watch, maybe you want to spend somewhere between $100 to $500 or even $1,000. If you're in that space, that's fine. But you don't even need to do all that. The truth is, you can buy something like this. Sorry, you guys. You can buy something like this, and this is the Casio F91W, but I'm going to put this and its metal counterpart inside the link in the description down below. You could buy something like that or the metal counterpart for $20, and it still looks nice. What it portrays to everybody else is, one, it's a tool, which means that time matters to you. Punctuality matters to you. It's an aesthetic, so it goes with the look. Even though it's not an expensive watch, it still can look nice. Especially the metal ones really look nice as well. And like I said, something just goes along the flow with everything that you're putting together and your dedication to caring about time and stuff like that. And people do notice these things. I definitely could tell you that people notice these things versus a person who has a naked wrist. Don't be one of those people who have a naked wrist. Have something on your wrist. You could also too do like bracelets. If you are that type, I have this bracelet and it has my kid's name on it, so I wear it all the time. I am a bracelet kind of person. I like having something on the other wrist, but that's something too that you could choose to do or not. I'm gonna, like I said, put a link in the description for the watch. You can find some decent bracelets on Amazon as well. I will try to find a couple of them and put some links in the description down below. I have found some that are not expensive, like $10 or less. But if you want to do that, you can. Just be mindful of that, and if it suits you. But, you know, like I said, maybe take a look at it in the mirror or whatever the case is, if it suits you. But that's another accessory you can have, but it's not one of the primary ones that we're speaking on now. So the next one of the primary ones, is a wallet. Don't be the kind of person who walks around, you got a big wad of cash and credit cards and all that inside in a rubber band in your pocket. And then when you get to wherever you're going, you pull it out and it's just like this big stack, and you're running through things, and you know, things are dropping or whatever the case is. Even if they're not dropping, it's just the point that it's really not a good look. Honestly, get yourself a wallet. Now, if you like something that has that more rubber band feel, there are wallets that are kind of like Ridge wallet, which I'm sure most of you guys heard of already. I'm not going to suggest that because that's $100. And if you're just getting started off, if you're in that space, you could do that. If you're not, you're just kind of, you know, young, because like I said, this message right here is going to of all ages, but especially if you're young, starting early, to try to get into that mindset. There are other ones that are similar to it, and I'm going to put a link down in the below for Amazon wallets that are very similar to that same design. If you like that design of, you know, almost like a rubber band in your pocket, but without it looking as basic and as like cheap or whatever you want to call it, bummy, as having just a rubber band in your wallet. But I personally prefer something that is leather. I like something that is leather or leather-ish, or something in that range, and something more minimalistic. So to me, this is the kind of thing that I use. But I'm going to put a link in the description for both types of wallets. And honestly, definitely get yourself a wallet, because like I said, it also is an accessory that you can have. Men don't really have option to a lot of accessories, so there's one of them, and it doesn't have to be expensive, but it can still look nice. Two, it every time when you pull out your wallet, it at least is the bar that's set for you to look organized and not be messy. You don't want to go below a certain line of the way you present yourself, even though you might think that okay, people don't do that anymore, they don't use those things, a watch, a wallet, blah blah. That's not true. And when you don't have them, there is a view that is set upon you. You may not realize it, or you may not care, but you should, because these are things that are going to affect the way that you feel about yourself going forward. Understand that it's affecting the way people look at you, and it should help you with understanding that you're moving to that next level. The third accessory that I feel is important to have is a pen. Now, I've showed something like this on the channel before. This is a Parker jotter pen. This is the all stainless steel, but they also have the ones with mixed color or bicolor. Will be the bottom half is like a color, and then the top half is metal. And those usually go for $10, whether it's the stainless steel or the bicolor ones. Nice, decent looking pen to have on you. If all you're gonna have is a big pen, that's fine too. But just carry a pen on you, because you never want to be that person who never has a pen, and you're in a situation where someone needs to use a pen, or you need to use a pen, and then you can say, okay, I have that, or oh, I have a pen. You let them know. If someone's like, oh, does anyone have a pen? But I have a pen. It stands out. It shows that you're prepared, you're ready. And from the older days, people always had to have a pen on hand. And now we always do it with cell phones, but it's still good to carry a pen on you at all times. And trust me, I've had situations where I've had pens on me and gotten complimented for just the fact that I had a pen and I was prepared in just random situations. So that's also a good look. And like I said, these are small little things that help dress you up, go hand in hand with your elevated look that you want to have for moving forward. And like I said, this is all to be put together for the purpose of your personal growth and you growing in that dynamic of the way you want to see yourself and the way you want others to see you. So these are some basic things that I think will change the way that you're perceived, the way you feel about yourself dramatically. And they're small steps, but all these things can be elevated down the line as well. And we'll go into later videos in showing how they can be elevated. But essentially, yes, all these things you down the line as you get older. If you're already in that older space, you can go head on right now. And if you have the finances, hit it harder. If you're younger, you start with the basics, like I mentioned, but as time goes on, so if you're 20 going into 25, you start off with these basics. You can elevate to where you're maybe at 30. You say, cool, I want to increase my wardrobe even more. I want even better clothes. I want better fit. I want to go to a tailor, have things tailored. The exercise, I step it up a notch. I'm not just trying to be basic fit. I'm trying to be really chiseled, whatever the look is that you're going for. Accessories, maybe I want to have an even nicer watch, a nicer wallet, a nicer pen. All these kind of things could be elevated, but these are the basics to get you started. And like I said, next video, we're gonna go into social growth, which is really important because it goes hand in hand with personal growth. You have to have the two combined for it to really work. But even though I break them down into two separate segments, you really do need both of them to make it work, because otherwise, one of the hardest parts, as I just mentioned briefly earlier in the video, is implementing these things comes easier when you feel there's a safe space for you to do it when you get started. And a lot of times that's you just going to a different place where you're perceived differently or no one knows you. And that way, you know, you can have that fresh start. So once again, you guys, thank you so much for getting us to the subscribers that we're at, for tuning in for every episode that you guys have tuned into, for you guys just kind of really, you know, being a part of this space. We have a lot more videos that we have planned ahead, a lot more things that I plan on doing, and I'm hoping that the channel can grow in the way I want it to. And we're gonna keep pushing forward. But once again, I thank you guys, and always, you guys, be safe, take care, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.